All righty. We are live. Hey,
Well, hello, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you, Violet?
Well, I am doing fantastic. So nice seeing you.
Nice seeing you as well. We had a good conversation the other day, and thank you for agreeing to be on this live stream with me today. I wanted to have you on here for a number of reasons, but I read this article that you wrote in the paper, this opinion article, and it was great. It was about what is happening right now as far as protests that are happening, and how the peaceful protesters have a great point, which is we are over investing in some areas in our communities and not investing enough in other areas. Um, and I've had a couple people on here to talk about that kind of stuff. But you are a social worker, and mental health services is your specialty. And so I would really like to hear that side of things, because I think, for the last 30 years, we've underfunded mental health services. But I really wanted to hear from an expert and hear what you have to say about this.
One of the things when we start to look at communities, and I'm going to come from a community's perspective and then lead into mental health. But when we're looking at communities that's going through different situations, such as in Murfreesboro, now is an opportune time to look at the community and also look at the stakeholders that's in the community. And when I wrote the article, one of the things that I was really concerned about is the recent protests and the direction that we're moving in. Murfreesboro right now is in an opportune time to really do some new thinking and to move in a certain direction. Now, one of the things that can be done when there is a community that's going through transition is to start to look at avenues of where change can take place. Now, one of the avenues to look at as far as the protests is to look at the police
Right.
and to have a community where the police and the community can come together in oneness. And when you start to look at disruption in different systems, it pays to be helpful to look at the entire system. And with the police force, there are good officers, and I want to be able, to state that. But also, there's an opportunity for change. The opportunity for change is to be able to have the police to be in the atmosphere where they can do what they do best. But police are not trained to deal with mental health.
Right.
And also, when you start to look at the areas of mental health, domestic violence, sex trafficking, and sexual trauma, the police is often called. My concern is that that's not what they go to school for. That's not what they're trained to do. But when you have mental health workers, such as social workers, that's embedded within the police force, it can really work as a partnership and it helped to make their job easier. So I am not talking about defunding the police, not by any means, because we definitely need that. But what I'm talking about is reallocation of some funds. As I stated in my article, I've seen several new police cars, I've seen new equipment. If you could take some of that money and divest it into community, into the resources, I can assure you that the social work or the mental health personnel would be worth their monies. Because when you start to look at what you would pay for an officer to go out and to deal with the domestic violence or to go out and to deal with a psychosocial issue, you could have a social worker there taking care of that. So it's not defunding the police, but it's looking at the allocation of resources in the community coming together with the protest. One of the things that is important important that people have the opportunity to talk, to engage in conversation, and to be valued. And I don't think that is the feeling right now.
Well, I mean, I would kind of disagree with that. I think there are some people who are very receptive to the messages that are, I mean, some people are about, abolishing police altogether, and we're not saying that. But, we're definitely recognizing that we're over investing in this, and we're over investing in aggressive tactics and the militarization of our local police force. Murfreesboro has I think it's $18 million mine resistant vehicle that was given to them by the Department of Justice. Now, some people might say, oh, that's free, but, we're talking about maintenance, how to, the fuel to just operate the thing has to be millions of dollars, if not thousands. And why exactly do we need that? Murfreesboro is not a battleground or anymore. It was 150 years ago, but it shouldn't be now. Now, with those protests that happened recently in Murfreesboro, I think that the police, the one that they shot tear gas at, I think that was an overreaction. I think they might have escalated it. Thankfully, it did not escalate into anything too extreme. But the second protest that happened recently, I noticed the cops were about de-escalating and they were not about shooting tear gas. So I'm a little bit hopeful that, these strategies are being adopted, but we definitely have that problem here in Murfreesboro, Rutherford County.
Matt, we're looking at two issues, but what I am doing is looking proactively. Those are the two issues right now. Murfreesboro is growing and
Yes.
Murfreesboro is changing.
Mm-hmm.
And there is the opportunity for growth. And anytime that there is growth, then there are other people that's going to be coming in. My philosophy is to be proactive as people are coming into Murfreesboro, for it to be a community that's inclusive and also that values the community input. In many cities the size of Murfreesboro, they do have a relationship or they have some type of task force that works with hand in hand with police officers and looking at the community. Now, if there is a task force of that committee that's going on in Murfreesboro, I'm not aware of it. But being proactive, look at what has happened and then have the opportunity to engage the citizens, engage people in the community, and see what it is that's needed for systematic change.
Right.
Because if people do not feel that they have been valued, if people feel that they have not been here, then this is not the end of it. You can't put a band-aid or use a band-aid approach to say, well, we did good one time and then we did better, but no, it's the best. And the way to be the best is by comprehensively coming together with all the stakeholders and also looking at avenues to change. And one of the things I strongly recommend is to have mental health embedded within the police so that they can do their job and do it better.
Yeah. I like that idea. That's a really good idea. And, we were talking about reallocating funds. I like how you put that. Reprioritizing. What is really going to matter at the end of the road? Is it these aggressive tactics that do not deter crime, or is it going to be investing in housing or in education or in healthcare? Or just basic mental health services, all things that have been defunded over the years. So I don't think it's too ridiculous to say that we need to move some funds, especially when Murfreesboro does spend about 19% of its budget on law enforcement as compared to about 9% for public services. But you worked at the VA for years. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Yes, yes. I retired from the VA and been at several VAs, but Tennessee Valley was my last VA. But I've been at VAs in other states, and also mental health and mental health facilities likewise.
Yeah. And I mean, mental health services are very important at the VA. I'm certain of it. Um,
Mhm.
how long had you been doing that?
Okay, I am retired from the VA. I am retired, but currently I am doing some adjunct teaching at MTSU, and
Okay.
also I have other projects that I am involved with as it relates to mental health. But as we look around, what we're seeing now is a greater need for mental health, and everything that's going on now, especially with the economy, with the coronavirus, also with healthcare workers, with the different stressors that individuals are going through. We're living in uncharted waters.
Right.
And as we start to slow down somewhat, we're going to start to see trauma that's been caused by the different situations people are going through. And there's definitely going to be a need for more mental health.
Yes.
Mental health services are going to be needed. We have people that have lost family members. They haven't gone through the grievance process because of everything that's going on. We have people that they have lost the way they've been accustomed to living, no fault of their own. So we have so many stressors that's coming at us on a day-to-day basis that some people are going to, and they're having a hard time coping, such as the rate of depression. Depression is real. Suicidal ideations, the feeling of helplessness, anxiety.
Right.
These are real issues that America and the whole country is going to be facing.
Right. And some folks are talking about how we're going to return to this normal, and really we're not anytime soon, for one thing, but for another thing, normal wasn't working for so many people. And I think that's really, this pandemic has really highlighted that. And I think a lot of people are becoming aware of how deep the income inequality is, not just among racial lines, but just class lines. But I think it's a good quarter of the population of the United States technically lives in poverty. So what have we done for those people over the years? I don't think we've done enough, and I think that's really coming to a head right now, especially when we're talking about you got to buy sanitizer and you got to buy masks and you got to keep your hands washed. Well, what about homeless folks who can't afford any of that stuff? They can't wash their hands.
No, absolutely. And we start to look at all those psychosocial issues, that's going on within the community and definitely within the homeless population. But then also we have other issues that's going on too. Crimes against humanity, the sex trafficking, and all of these are issues that communities really grapple with, and that's going to be another need for mental health. And when you start to talk about those issues of homelessness, and also, people could go in and maybe pick up things that they need, then what do? You call the police. Okay, if there's domestic violence, which has increased, what do? You call the police. When sexual trauma has taken place, what do? You call the police. So we have where we have been normally calling the police, about many things that police are not really, that's not their area of expertise. They do the best that they can, but taking mental health and putting it with the police force and to have them to work together would be an ideal situation as it relates to the community. Now, with the protests, that's a little different. But one of the things, social workers are trained to do de escalation. They're trained to know systems. They're trained to work with the family. So I think it would be a win win situation. But I say that Murfreesboro is ripe for change. You cannot have a community that's growing by leaps and bounds, and you're going to have the same kind of outdated thinking. There was something that was written in the paper that really touched me in the wrong way, and it stated that quote that there were these were bad people that was going to be disrupting the protest. First of all, I don't think that there are, quote, bad people. I think people can do bad things. I say that to move the thinking, the engagement. We need to have a conversation because words matter. Also, in having the conversation, it gets into the racial tension that's going on. And there is racial tension
Hmm.
that's going on in Murfreesboro. If we do not move forward in having those crucial conversations, then I foresee there is going to be future problems, and the protests that we've had, the last two, will be nothing like the one that can explode. Whenever there's racial tension and social unrest in any community, if it's not proactively addressed, then you're going to have more cases of having the police to intervene and to get into situations that maybe, number one, they weren't prepared for, and secondly, situations that could be handled differently. It is so important for Murfreesboro and the community leaders to come together right now and to be proactive and to have those crucial conversations. Yes, race needs to be discussed. It may be uncomfortable for some, but that's okay. This is a part of the healing process.
Well, you made several good points right there, and we Murfreesboro still has this kind of, or at least lots of residents kind of have this like small town mentality, or let me put this a different way. They kind of feel like oh, Murfreesboro's not like that. Murfreesboro is so friendly, but you go and explore the different parts of Murfreesboro and Rutherford County, and you can see the areas that they are investing in and the areas they're not investing in. January Street type area is right down the street from, the prison, which is, 6 or 7 stories tall. And we could get deeper into that, but what basically is that we are investing in putting people into jails, and that's a conversation that we're not having. Is what happens to these folks that we are locking up? Because when I was younger, it was we're rehabilitating these folks, and it was this picture of oh, when they come out, they're different people, they're better people, and they can live a normal life. Well, that's absolutely not true. And we've seen that, their rights are taken away, and that it's not easy for them to come back into society. It's not easy for them to hold a job, not by their fault, but because they're stigmatized. So we're not actually interested in rehabilitating these folks. And just like you said, like we're thinking about this in good guy, bad guy, in this kind of dual way of thinking that's more akin to the movies that we watch than reality, because
Yeah, absolutely. When I was in the state of Ohio, I did teach college classes for the incarcerated. And we had instructors such as myself, and we went into the prisons and we taught college classes, and they were able to graduate right there in the prison. They could get it was the associate degree program. And then once they were, released, of course, they could finish their education. But one of the things that I want to bring up is by having the opportunity in teaching at the local level here in Murfreesboro, MTSU, we are dealing with a new student population. The generation of today, they're different. The generation of today, they don't deal with gray issues. It's either black or white. You either did it or you didn't do it. We have raised a generation that's really into the environment, also into questioning processes. Also, we've raised a generation that is more open to change and willing to get out there and to be change agents, to really advocate for rights. In that regard, we've come a long way in that regard, but now we have raised up this new generation. We have a different way of thinking. My concern is if we want Murfreesboro to remain the same, it's not going to work. It can't work
Right.
because the times have changed. There is a bolden population of young people. Social media is at an all-time high. There's a lot of networking that goes on within the college students and with young people together. And if they feel like something is not right, I'm seeing more young people being willing to speak up and being able to speak up and being challenging the system. As we continue to have this kind of growth in Murfreesboro, it's very important for the community leaders to come together and to have that engagement. When we look at the civil rights, it did not take one meeting and then everything was hunky-dory. This is
Right.
a process. This is a cultural shift.
Right.
I'm sounding the alarm because if we look proactively and we look into the future, I can see this on the horizon. Murfreesboro may be fine and great to some, but I can feel the tension
Yeah.
rising. And as I start to feel it, there is a need to start to have those community engagements, to be able to hear the residents, to be able to hear the young people, to be able to look at ways in which we can change for the better.
Right. Absolutely. There needs to be a lot more of that. And it's not just going to take one meeting and
Mm-mm.
everything's going to be hunky dory, right? And I think a
But
lot of
I'm
the solution.
but I'm wondering who's going to step up and be the leader here.
Mm-hmm.
Should this be a grassroots movement, or is someone going to set up and say, "Hey, you know what? I see this. Let's get the community together. Let's start to have those conversations. Let's
Right.
start to hear from people." Since I've been here, I've never received a survey from anyone in the community saying, "Hey, how are we doing?" Other
Mm-hmm.
than the store maybe that I visit. I've never had the contact with community leaders such as, let's say, the police department to ever send out a survey to the residents saying, "Hey, we're the police officers here. We care about you. How are we doing? How can we do things better?" In order for situations to change, you have to be able to ask those tough questions, listen, and then look for avenues for change. And right now, I'm hearing unrest. I'm seeing the arrests among people, but I'm not seeing any type of action being put into place.
Right. And, Rutherford County is the fifth largest county in Tennessee now. They say we're going to overtake Hamilton County in the next 5 or 10 years, which is mind blowing to me, but
Mhm.
that's not right. Um, and so we're going to continue to go down this path. We're going to continue to have lots of changes. And you're right, there's not, as much community engagement as we would like. I do see a lot of people who want to speak up, who want to stand up, and that's great. I know some of these folks who want to see these statues down, and I'm all about that. But at the end of the day, it's not just about the statues. If the statues come down and nothing else changes, we just fought for a bunch of marble, right, or whatever they're made out of. We need to focus on passing policies that actually help people.
Absolutely. And in my article, I alluded to the fact that there may be laws in place that people don't even know about. As far as the statutes, I do have thoughts, about that, and I can tell you something that happened to me when I was in Ohio. Here I was working for the VA, and I was with a group of colleagues, and we were going to a workshop right there in Miami, Ohio, is where I was going. When I entered the campus, the university, the first thing that met me was a big, huge Confederate flag. And for the whole time that I was there, I had thoughts about it. Um, and I now come back here to Murfreesboro. When
Hmm.
you think about Murfreesboro, you think about downtown. You wanted it to be welcoming. You want it to be inclusive. You want people to be feel safe.
Yeah.
You want people to be able to be proud of what's downtown.
Right.
When you start to deal with the African American population, and people of color, and we see those statues, it sends a message. And the message that it's saying is not one that's welcoming.
Right.
One thing to think, if you're looking at your city and you wanting it to be inclusive and you wanting people to move in, then what atmosphere do you want to set? I don't think you want a statue of that nature to be there for everybody to see. Now, about the statues, if you want to have them, that's fine. Why not have a museum? I understand the law that was written. I understand that. But laws have been challenged throughout our history. If laws hadn't been challenged, we would still be in slavery.
That's
So
true.
I know that laws can be challenged, but there's a systematic way that you go about challenging the laws. Now, if you want to have your statues, have them, but they don't need to be downtown. Put them in a museum. For people that want to go and see it, maybe that's a way to come up with revenue. You charge for people to go to a museum. So take those statues, that's a part of history, let it be, put it in a museum. But what is it that you really want downtown? To say, hey, we're all inclusive. We welcome you. We want you to be a part of our community. Because remember, money is green.
Yeah.
It's green. So we need to look at that. And this is a way of forward thinking, not looking at everything, well, this is the way that we've already always done it. That doesn't work today. We're raising up a new generation of thinkers. These are going to be the future generation, and they are beginning to question systems that make no sense. As
Right.
leaders, we need to look at those systems and say, okay, yeah, this is a law that was passed, that this statute needs to be here, but you know what? It was passed. Let's see what we can do. How can we come together and work for the good of the community? It's not about, black and white, but it's about us coming together for the good of the community. Murfreesboro is multicultural. And because we are, then I think there should be the representation of that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that if anyone wants to get further involved, I know there's a lot of people out there who might want to join the protests and can't for one reason or another, or they want to do so much, but they can't. They got two kids and two jobs and all that kind of stuff. Um, a good way to get your voice out is to do what you did, which is write an opinion into the paper, which was a great opinion, and talk about what you want to see in Murfreesboro, and do so respectfully.
Mhm.
Say, hey, listen, we've got a problem here, and we need to fix it. We are definitely having a problem with housing, with homelessness, with healthcare, with
Mhm.
mental health services. We need to be investing more money in that, on a city level, on a county level, on a state level, and on a federal level. And I think that like I've said, if anybody listening to this wants to get more involved, I would say think about going to your city council, your county commission meeting, and figuring out what they're working on and saying, we'd wish you to work on something else because they're not working on these things, unfortunately, on a local level. But we're hoping to change some of that in November because I am
Mhm.
running for state house.
Yes.
Hopefully, I'll be going to Nashville next year and be fighting for these types of issues. But it doesn't just end with my campaign and in 2020, because 2022 is right around the corner, and all the county commission seats are going to be up. More city council seats are going to be up, and we need some more people to step up. So anyway, do you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
When I, think about the different issues, that's going on, it's just so many, and I'm trying not to go into, several, different ones all at one.
Right.
But I really want to come back to the one about the community engagement. That really needs to start. Because with the protest and then with the other demonstration, this is not the end. This is not the end. And for a community that's proactive, when this happens, you immediately come together, with community members, and you sit down and you talk about it. You debrief. You look at what happened. You look at what could have been done differently, and then you invite other people in to get their input. And larger cities, they're having some issues too, but they do have boards of this nature. And with you saying Murfreesboro is going to be what the largest city, and I know when I was at the VA, the one Tennessee Valley is the sixth largest VA. Within 10 years, it's destined to become the third. And the reason why, there's going to be more and more retirees that's coming into this part of Tennessee because of the tax and also because of the weather. So that was something that was on the horizon for this part of Tennessee. And you have Murfreesboro sitting right here in Middle Tennessee. More than anything, be proactive. Bring the community together, establish an oversight board, start to get input. You have the university sitting there, MTSU, pull in some of those young people, have them to be on the committee. Also, another group of the protesters that was there, I think Sunday, the last protest, pull them in and talk with them, because what you find out is what they may be protesting for is not what is seen on the surface. Usually it's more systematic, and it's things that has been in the community for years, and people get to a point they feel oppressed, and when people are oppressed, they will take it for so long.
Right.
And then once people are tired and sick and tired of feeling or being oppressed, then that's when you have social unrest. And what we're getting into right now is just the ice, we're just scraping the surface. But the unrest can boil. So I am saying to the police department, to the mayor, now is the time to really, come together, look at the police force. I mean, what type of image do you want your police force to have? Do
Right.
you want it to be community? Do you want them to be involved and invested in the community? Or do you want the feeling of when something's get wrong, let's call the police? I mean, what type of police force do you want? And secondly, look at your investments. Yes, invest in your police officers. Do that. But also you invest in your community, and then you give them the resources that they need. And one of the resources they definitely need is mental health.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You were very knowledgeable, and I didn't think of actually integrating, of putting mental health professionals in with the police. But why not? I mean, like you said, all these things that could be helped with a social worker, the police are getting called to, and they're not maybe trained for that kind of stuff, or they might be dealing with some other stuff going on, and a situation can escalate because of aggressive tactics. So we absolutely need to start reprioritizing what's important here.
Yeah, no, Matt, and if I may say, there is some research, Baltimore, Kansas City, Denver, parts of Kentucky, they do have social workers working right there with the police
Okay. I did not know
embedded.
that.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and many of them use something that's called a crisis response team, and
Okay.
they're hired and they're right there with law enforcement, and they are a behavioral health crisis team, and they go out.
Wow. I've never heard of such a thing. Thank you for telling me about that. Crisis
Mhm.
relief.
Yeah, they're called a crisis response team.
Crisis response team.
Yeah, and they deal with behavioral health.
Okay.
Mhm.
There's no reason why we couldn't have that here. And especially with the millions of dollars that we're over investing in certain things like a mine resistant vehicle for Murfreesboro that we absolutely don't need. So,
Take that money, invest it in mental health and also in community resources, and that will definitely help the police. But also look at the culture, a paradigm shift. How do you want your police to be seen in the community?
right,
That's that's major. Can the community trust a police when a police comes into the neighborhood?
right,
Yeah, and what is the image that you want the police? How do you want your police force to be perceived?
right.
Mhm.
Well, you made some great points. Thank you so much for being on the live stream tonight. I appreciate all that you do. I know you're a very involved member of the NAACP
Mhm.
also. So, another action that people could take if they watch this is to join the NAACP, their local chapter. I know one of the many missions they're going to be working on is getting people to register to vote.
Mhm.
And that's really needed right now. A time when I think a lot of people are um, more interested in politics and the way things work. Still, registration rates are not as high as we like them to be. So I'm really happy that they're doing that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I would like to say to anyone that's may listen to this podcast, a live stream, is that really your vote is your weapon. So,
Hmm.
use it. And I would like to see, more and more individuals vote, because that's a way that you can bring some change is through the vote.
Right. And, a lot of people think we're so one way in Tennessee, but actually we're not. And there's a lot more people here than you think. And if more people came out and vote, we would, I think, have a bigger change. And so hopefully we're going to see that this year on a lot of different levels.
Yes, I serve on the Census 2020 committee.
Okay.
And one of the things is that we definitely, want people to get more involved in the census, to make sure, that people do fill the census out, because we know about the monies and the allocations that's attached to that. And I say this to say that Murfreesboro has really grown, and there are a lot more people, and maybe traditionally they may have gone in one direction, but as I see new growth coming in Murfreesboro, I am sensing there could be a change.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think so too.
And I'm hopeful.
Yeah, me
Yes.
too. I think so too. I absolutely do.
Hmm.
Well,
I do too.
thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. Again, please join your local NAACP, get involved with the community. We do need more people to step up and be interested in, what your city is doing, what your county is doing, what your state is doing, and what they're doing with this money. Because a lot of times we give tax cuts to people who don't need it, businesses that don't necessarily need it, and community services get cut over and over and over again, and it's time for that not to happen anymore. And so again, this is bigger than me and my campaign. And no offense to you, but it's bigger than you. This is the
Absolutely.
new movement here is to say,
Mhm.
listen, it's time to start investing in the community.
Absolutely. And once again, the community is growing. As community grow, you're bringing in new folks. As you bring in new people, there is going to be the opportunity for unrest. And a community that is really a community that embrace inclusion and cultural differences are those communities that will make it. It's a new way of thinking, and I think as leaders that we need to be proactive enough to move and to do that paradigm shift in our thinking.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Mhm.
Well, thank you again for joining me tonight, Miss Violet Cox Wingo. I really appreciate everything that you said, and I think we had a great conversation. Again, we're going to have more of these, so please stay tuned. Thank you so
Okay.
much for joining us tonight.
Okay, and thank you, Matt, for having me. You have a
Thank
great
you.
one.
I
Okay.
appreciate it. Have a good
Okay.
one. See you
Okay.
later.
You too. Bye bye.